Bears trade rumors continue to fly in as we are 13 days away from the 2025 NFL trade deadline. My name is Harrison Graham. Here's what we got on tap. For today's show, Jermaine Johnson has been linked to Chicago by ESPN. We've talked about him a little bit, but we'll explore him further here on today's show. Are the Bears potentially going to trade Braxton Jones? Plus, we got the full breakdown of ESPN's trade candidates list that they put out, and we'll kind of discuss a few of those guys that I would be interested in. But first, help us out. Share this video on X, Twitter, whatever you guys are calling it these days. All you got to do is follow these 3 simple steps. Click the share icon, then select the X icon. And then if you want to go above and beyond, tag me before you post. At HGramNFL, I'll retweet. If you follow me, I'll follow you back. Let's spread the word. Let's spread the love. And, hey, I would greatly appreciate it. Okay, Jermaine Johnson, the fourth-year edge rusher for the New York Jets, has been named as not only a trade candidate, there's been reporting on this as well that the Jets are taking calls on him. And the Bears have been mentioned as a potential fit by Jeremy Fowler of ESPN.com. The Jets are not desperate to trade Johnson, Fowler says. Good edge rushers are hard to find, and his $13.4 million salary for 2026, which is his fifth-year option, which has already been exercised, is reasonable. But my sense about asking around is that New York would be more willing to part with Johnson than Will McDonald IV if they made any move at the position. McDonald is in the third year of his rookie deal, whereas Johnson is in the fourth, and Johnson has garnered a bit of interest thus far. ESPN also predicts that there's a 35% chance that Jermaine Johnson would get traded. Obviously, that's just their estimate. You know, like, for example, Trey Hendrickson, I think they gave a 10 or 20% chance. So probably based on the reporting they're hearing, how interest the team itself would be in actually moving the player. Jermaine Johnson's cap hits for the team that would acquire him are as follows. If you trade for him before the next game, because it gets prorated down each week, $1.5 million right now. So that would dip down to probably 1.4 something next week. But either way, not much at all. The Bears could certainly absorb that. Next year, 13.4, which is a reasonable number for a fifth-year option for a young, talented edge who has been productive at times in the NFL. The big concern, red flag here, is he did tear his Achilles last year. And he missed the final 15 games, missed the first couple games this year with an ankle injury. So he has been susceptible to injuries. He played really well in 2023, and most people thought, okay, second-year leap for a young pass rusher. That third year is really when they take off, and then, boom, the Achilles pops. So certainly a setback. Not as just career-ending type of injuries as they were before, but, you hear that Achilles word, it's obviously a little bit of a concern. It's something you would obviously have to factor in if you're the Bears, if you were to bring in Jermaine Johnson. You look at some of the advanced numbers this year for Johnson from a pass rush standpoint in 4 games that he's played, has just 1 sack, 2 QB hits, does have 12 pressures on less than 100 pass rush snaps. That's over 12%. It's a little above average. It's not great, but it's above average. You'd like it to be, in that 14, 15 plus range. Then you're really, really in a good range for that. But if you're above 10, you're in a pretty decent spot there. And remember, these are his first 4 games back off an Achilles. The Jets stink. You start to wonder if complacency sets in for certain guys. So all things that have to be considered when talking about the player. Matt Bowen providing the X's and O's analysis on Jermaine Johnson in this article from ESPN. He says an Achilles injury forced Johnson to miss 15 games in 2024. Had to miss 3 earlier this season with an ankle issue, but when healthy, he has the strength and the lower body quickness to attack the pocket. Johnson has best numbers in 2023 when he had 7.5 sacks and 16 pressures. Look, out of all the guys that have been mentioned from an edge rusher standpoint, the big names, the Hendricksons of the world, the rental types, Jaylen Phillips, last year's deal, Bradley Chubb and his big contract, I think I'm actually most intrigued with Jermaine Johnson, and here's why. It's because of the upside and the current contract. With a lot of these other guys, if you trade for Jaylen Phillips, you pretty much have to extend him. You're not trading for a young rental. Jermaine Johnson, though, you would have a year and a half of team control. He's got that fifth-year option already exercised for next year. So if the price is right, I would take a mild swing here if you could get him at a draft comp that was reasonable, which I'll explore in a second, and see if he can turn into a guy you keep long term. He's still a young player. He had a really good 2023. He's flashed some signs since coming back in 4 games. Again, the Achilles thing's a concern. Obviously, you would do a medical review, and he would have to pass a physical, but he intrigues me as a young player. He really felt like the next kind of big-time pass rusher a couple years ago, and obviously had the health setback. Also, I looked back at his relative athletic score. We know that's something Ryan Poles is valued, and all teams do, some more than others. But more specifically, I was curious, okay, what were the measurables? What did he weigh in at? What was the arm length? 34-inch arms. That's a big check mark for Dennis Allen. Just under 6'5", 254. Sometimes DA likes guys 260, 270, but from an arm length and physicality standpoint, he does mostly fit those measurables that Dennis Allen likes. So I think he would check a decent amount of boxes. Plus, he offers more speed than the current Bears edge rushers. Montez Sweat's not really known as a speed guy. Dio Odengbo definitely isn't. He's more of just a bull rusher power type that's really just a run edge defender at this point. So based on what we've seen, certainly. So I think he'd also would offer you a different look. So again, if the price is right, I would be interested. And this would be my offer. I think I would offer a 4th-round pick. Again, it's a mild swing. It's it's not a backbreaker if it doesn't work out, but it's also a decent pick for the Jets, who just really need to commit to this major rebuild here. I would not do a day 2 pick, I don't think. If I sent a 3rd, I'd have to get a pick back. Like maybe I would do a 3rd, get a 5th back, something like that. But I would settle for a 4th. I would do that for Jermaine Johnson. If you would as well, type T for trade. If you do not want to do this trade, type P for pass. I think the money is reasonable. I think the draft comp is reasonable. And there's a chance he could really hit, especially in this defense. I think it's a worthwhile swing. Okay, how about Braxton Jones? We talked about the Bears being linked to a player that they could trade for. How about a player that they could trade away? ESPN had Jones in this article where they listed 25 trade candidates, listed 3 teams that could trade for him. We'll dive into him and what his future could look like here in just a moment. But I do want to tell you guys first about our awesome sponsor, PrizePicks. Daily fantasy made easy at prizepicks.com/CLNS. You and I make decisions every day, just like these GMs and teams are about to before the trade deadline. But being right on PrizePicks can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. I've been right a lot this season. I'm having my best season so far on PrizePicks. This is my 3rd year with them, and got to tell you, I've made a nice little coin here over the last 6-8 weeks or so, and we're back on the saddle this week. I'm sticking to mostly football lineups, but basketball is back. Hockey is going. You can cross over sports in your lineups. The way to qualify for a PrizePicks lineup, just pick 2 or more players, up to 6 players, and take more or less on their stat projections. This is an example of a 2-player lineup. Derrick Henry, more than half a rushing or receiving touchdown. That's a goblin play. Those are easier to hit on. And then you've got Rome Odunze, a demon play, tougher to hit on. Same deal, half a rushing or receiving touchdown. Rome has not found the end zone the last 2 weeks. I think he's due. Derrick Henry, I think, is going to run angry coming out of the bye week. I think he finds the end zone at least once. $20 entry to win $55. Certain lineups can win up to 2,000 times your entry. So what are you waiting for? Download the PrizePicks app today and use our code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Okay, Jeremy Fowler on Braxton Jones saying rival teams agree that Jones is a sensible trade candidate after his benching in favor of Theo Benedict and his resume as a multi-year starter in Chicago. Jones is also in a contract year, and he is now healthy following an ankle issue that plagued him for much of 2025. And yeah, you wonder too, with Jones sitting the last couple weeks, probably rehabbing even more, like has that ankle fully recovered? Is it at full strength at this point in time? You would certainly hope so, both for Jones' sake, number one, and for the Bears' sake, too, if they do keep him and need to go back to him in a pinch, if Theo were to struggle or if Theo were to get injured. Obviously, if he's on this team, you want him to be the best version of himself, so that's number one. But also number two, you could sell that to potential trade partners like, hey, like he's fully healthy now, he's ready to go. Maybe that, gets you slightly better draft compensation for Braxton Jones. The 3 teams that were linked to Jones per ESPN: Las Vegas Raiders. Now, they're having a rough year. Does it make sense for them to trade, Bill Barnwell throughout that Braxton Jones for Tyree Wilson swap? I'd certainly, be open to that. The Los Angeles Rams, it could be a swing tackle type. They've had some O-line attrition over the last couple of years. They could make sense for him. And the Chargers, Joe Alt's about to come back, but even their right tackle situation hasn't been that great. I don't know how they would view him as a right tackle option. He's played strictly left in the NFL, but at minimum, he'd be quality depth for them as they've had some major attrition at that offensive tackle spot this year. ESPN does predict that there's a 25% chance the Bears trade Braxton Jones. So that's actually less than Jermaine Johnson, which is slightly surprising because Jones is in the final year of his deal, and he certainly does not appear to be a piece in Chicago long term. But I think the reason for that is there is still some element of unknown for a couple things. One, is Theo Benedict just going to run with this thing the rest of the season? I think he's had one good game in Washington, one so not great game against the Saints. Not terrible, but I didn't think he played as well. So you've got that element. You could always go back to Braxton if you needed to. Or also just like if an injury pops up, do you trust Ozzie Trapillo to play on the left side? Because they seemingly have ended that. To my knowledge, he's not getting any left tackle reps. And, they've even said yeah, we moved him back to right where he's more comfortable. So if you're going to make this move, if you're going to trade Braxton Jones, two things come into play. One, how much would you get in return? If it's just a pick swap, do you just play it out and keep them? You know what I'm saying? You might be better off just keeping them and maybe you get a comp pick for them. But even if you don't, a 6th or a 7th, doesn't really net you much. Because 2, and this is the more important one, you're 4-2. You're trying to be competitive this year. If Theo struggles, if he goes down, you have Braxton, so that's a nice luxury to have. If you do trade him, do you feel comfortable with your other options? Can Ozzie play over there? Would you do a nuclear option and put Darnell at left and plug in Ozzie at right? Would you kick Joe Tooney out to left? I don't want to do that. So those are all questions you have to answer. If you're comfortable with that scenario where you have to take Theo out of the game or if he were to get injured, then sure, trade Braxton Jones if you get, at least an individual pick for him. That's not a pick swap. If not, you probably just keep him because he could help you in a pinch if something were to happen. So what say you? Should the Bears trade Braxton Jones? Type Y for yes, or you can type in for no. If you get a 5th or a 6th and you feel comfortable with other left tackle options, sure, I'd be open to it. If not, if it's a pick swap or you don't like the options behind him, there's absolutely no harm in keeping him and having an experienced backup left tackle. Okay, we'll just go a little rapid fire here. Both these players were part of ESPN's top 25 trade candidates. Trey Hendrickson obviously continues to be the top name. As it's been reported, it's less likely now that the Bengals won last week. If they were to get upset by the Jets, could that door reopen? We'll have to wait and see. Jaylen Waddle doesn't really apply to the Bears. They're not trading for a receiver. Breece Hall, if the run game were to regress back, maybe they would revisit that. For now, I don't think they would do that. Woolen, I'm still somewhat interested in. We'll find out a Tyreek Stevenson update later today. Apparently, Seattle doesn't view him as a fit in Mike Macdonald's scheme. That's what ESPN wrote up, so that's interesting. Jakobi Meyers, I think he's getting moved. Won't be to the Bears, obviously. Mark Andrews is an interesting one. If the Bears were to beat the Ravens, I could see Baltimore maybe unloading him somewhere. Chicago wouldn't trade for him unless Cole Kmet's injury was serious or something. But even then, I don't think they would trade for a 30-year-old expensive tight end. Chris Olave, receiver, again, doesn't apply to the Bears. Jalen Phillips, maybe, but he's a year further into his contract than Jermaine Johnson. If you trade for him, you almost have to extend him. But then, are you pivoting off Montez Sweat? There's a lot of moving parts there. Alontae Taylor, the corner with the Saints, another player to monitor if they do want to add some corner depth. We've obviously discussed Germaine. Logan Wilson, Bears don't need an off-ball linebacker, but that's a name to monitor. Michael Carter, another corner if you want just a depth piece there. Maybe you could buy low on him. Arden Key's interesting. Physical edge rusher from Tennessee. I would poke. I'd call Mike Borgonzi, see what that looks like. Roger McCreary's strictly a nickel, so I don't think the Bears would go that route. Chikakonkwo, tight end with Tennessee as well, not Bears related. Arnold Ebiketie, another edge rusher with Atlanta. He's kind of been lost in the shuffle because of James Pierce and Jalen Walker's emergence as rookies. We've talked about Braxton, Kingsley Enagbare, obviously within the division. Nothing going to happen there with the Bears. Russell Wilson, no thank you. Cam Taylor-Britt, another corner option. He got benched recently. Could you do like a pick swap for him just to have a depth experienced corner? Maybe. Kirk Cousins, not Bears related. I do wonder if he gets moved, though. Kyle Duggar, really bad contract. Bears wouldn't do that. Jerome Ford, if you want just like a depth running back that won't cost hardly anything, like is he an upgrade over Roschon Johnson? Perhaps. Maybe. Probably only would happen if you suffered an injury at running back. Christian Harris, off-ball linebacker, no need. Evan Neal, no thank you. So those are the top 25 ESPN trade candidates. Obviously, the ones specified to the Bears, Braxton Jones, and then Jermaine Johnson, who ESPN named as a potential fit for Chicago. All right, that's going to do it for Chicago Bears Now. We will be back in a few hours this afternoon. I put out a short. Lamar Jackson may not play this week, according to Dan Graziano of ESPN. We'll see what the injury report tells us. Once the Bears and Ravens drop their injury reports, we will react to that this afternoon. So don't forget to subscribe and join us. And as always, bear down.